Episode 64 of the Sports Marketing Machine podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Neisser. Today's episode, I sit down with Scott Peace, the Associate Athletic Director for Marketing and Fan Engagement at Kent State. Scott and his team has had a marvelous last year and a half, increasing the attendance of a lot of sports on campus. We talk about what's working, what isn't, how to get students involved so that they're coming to games and supporting the teams, and a lot more. In this action-packed episode, let's get right to it right now. Welcome to the Sports Marketing Machine podcast, the podcast to help those working in sports level up their marketing skill set so they can sell more tickets, sell more merchandise, and grow your fan base. I'm your host, Jeremy Neisser. Super pumped to bring Scott Peace from Kent State on today. We're going to talk all things about college athletics, marketing, getting people to games. Scott, appreciate you coming on. Real quick, what's your background?
Jeremy, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be able to contribute a small amount to the awesome project you've had going, so appreciate that. Background for me, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky originally. Growing up in Louisville, it was a no-brainer for me to go to the University of Louisville for undergrad, so I did that, did a number of internships between marketing, ticket office, things like that. It was a really exciting time to be there. That was kind of when they were having all the success with football and the Sugar Bowl, basketball, national championships, so it was cool time to be a part of that. From there, I worked for a little over a year at University of South Florida through, at the time, IMG Learfield Ticket Solutions, which has had two or three names since then, I believe. Now
Mm-hmm.
Learfield Amplify. So really just kind of got the classic start in sports of going in head first with a list and a phone and a good luck, and did that for a little over a year. And while I didn't want to do that forever, I don't think I could have had a better start to my career in terms of just getting me ready and prepared and just learning how to talk to people and sell and all those things. So
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed our time down in Tampa. From there, worked at the University of Evansville, which is in Southwest Indiana, for almost 9 years, actually, after that, in a number of different roles between ticket office, marketing, even some fundraising at the end, and kind of overseeing the external units there. And then now at Kent State as the associate AD for marketing, that's where my passion is. So I was really excited to get back into a role that allows me to dive headfirst into that. I've been here since January of 23, so a little over a year now.
Little over a year. Yeah, there's something to be said about starting your role as smiling and dialing and trying to make it, and how it transfers on over to marketing. I feel like you've become a better marketer because you've had that experience.
I could not agree more. I think where that's helped me is that I always kind of still think through that revenue generation side of the business, and I think that kind of helps with a lot of decisions that get made from day to day throughout the year.
Perfect. So let's dive in a little bit about your staff before we start talking tactics and what worked, what didn't, what have you. This year, you had some tremendous jumps in attendance, and we'll go through that in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about your staffing structure. Who do you have under you? Who are you managing? What are their roles?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think what I found is that how big a staff feels probably depends a lot about where you've been and
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So while I have a bigger staff than I'm used to, it's still probably not going to knock anybody's socks off. So obviously, there's me in the marketing office. I do have one full-time assistant director. When fully staffed, we also have two graduate assistants in the marketing office. And then we have like an army of student workers we're really lucky to have that are in the sport management program here and trying to get some experience. So that's wonderful. I also oversee the ticket office here as of about 3 months into my time here. So they have one full-time director of ticketing. We have another GA in the ticket operations space. We are a Learfield Amplify school, so we have a director of ticket sales um, through them, and then that person has a GA as well to kind of help handle group sales and all that. And then kind of separately and probably unique to the college space, I'm also the women's soccer sport administrator, and then I'm the secondary administrator for lacrosse. So uh, busy, but all the good stuff.
Now, what about the game entertainment? Is that also on your shoulders?
Yeah, so I would say where we come in, everybody's structured a little bit different, I think.
Hmm.
We are much less social and creative and some of that side that lives more so under communications, and we are a lot more game presentation based. We are always thinking ticket sales, like we said, revenue
Hmm.
generation, the promotional plans, a lot of that kind of thing. So that's kind of how we're structured here. Trying to get people to the games, the experience they have when they're there, and then what are we doing to get them back? That's how I would boil that down.
Perfect. So it sounds like you have had a tremendous year of getting folks to your games. So just rattling off some of the numbers: women's soccer up 34% in attendance, women's volleyball up 48%, field hockey's up 83%, gymnastics 35%, wrestling 155%, 39% increase for men's hoops. You've been doing a lot of great things, and we're going to dive into it. But just high level, you got to feel really good about the year that you've been having.
Yeah, we're thrilled about how it's gone so far, and we'll dive into it like you said. But I think if someone asked me why do I feel like that happened, I think the simple answer would be we gave a level of intentionality and creativity and purpose to a lot of the sports that did not get either any attention at all or the attention it deserves. So while the football budget and the field hockey budget are not one to one, and I don't think anyone would argue that they should be necessarily,
Hmm.
but the work that goes into it and the planning and the communication that has been one to one. I think that's the biggest thing is giving all the sports and the student athletes the attention it deserves, and that seems to have worked the past year or so.
So let's dive in just to men's basketball. Across the country, a lot of universities have men's basketball. So hopefully there's a tip or two that we talk through that someone could steal and implement and say, all right, this is successful and we're getting more folks to it. So last year, 39% increase men's basketball. You finished the year 17 and 17. So it's not like you had a tremendous year on the court. And oftentimes people think, well, if you win, it makes it
Yeah.
easier. You didn't have that. So what were some of the things that you did to get to point to where you are right now? There's a lot of little things, I'm sure.
Yeah. So to be honest, the year was kind of a disappointment in terms of how it went. We did end up back in the conference championship game when it was all said and done, but we did win the conference tournament and go to the NCAA tournament the year before. So I do want to say that there was a level of success. It's not like there wasn't anything to build off of. I do think we did a good job of capitalizing that early. Very roller coaster year, though. I mean, 17 and 17 kind of sums that up
Hmm.
perfectly. So we didn't have a lot of the star power that we had the year before. We didn't have a lot of the on-court success that we did. So couldn't really attach onto that. I think two things really worked well for us this past year. One, we really dove in hard with some premium giveaways, especially on the student side. And so we're very lucky. Our division of student life really sees the value in athletics. They provide a little bit of a budget for us to be able to do that kind of thing in the spirit of increasing the student experience at Kent State as a whole.
Hmm.
So we really put that money to good work. We had some really big giveaways we did sneaker slippers, we did black replica jerseys, we did a lot of cool stuff. And people were lining out, you see the photos on social of the student sections. Well, we finally had that, and we've never had that before. So we had
Hmm.
the line wrapped around the building. That was awesome. The other tactic that we used a lot is tying in activations and programs that weren't necessarily had anything to do with the game. A lot of international nights and Greek nights and different student organizations and community organizations that, well, yeah, there's a basketball game going on. That's great. That's really not maybe the main reason they're there. Really similar tactic to like minor league baseball, where it's
Hmm.
maybe not tied to the result. So we kind of use that tactic a little bit. And yeah, it paid off for sure.
Did you see a lot of group ticket sales from some of those theme nights?
Yeah, we did. We did. Our most successful group sales night was our youth sports day, which that's pretty low hanging fruit.
Yep.
The thing that was nice for us that day, it was our only game of the year that was a men's and women's double header. So there was kind of that extra carrot there of two games. We also did a youth spirit clinic. So cheer and dance held a
Hmm.
clinic that was sold out, and then they perform at the game. They go in the stands. Mom and dad come.
Hmm.
We all know that routine. So that really paid off for us this past year for sure.
Yeah, those two are tried and true, good group sales opportunities, and they work. They absolutely work. These
Mhm.
these theme nights that you mentioned, they work in minor league baseball. They work in hockey. They work everywhere. I was actually quite surprised that a lot of universities, specifically mid majors, are not rolling out these theme nights because just a great way for you to be able to connect to the community and get people to your game. So it's a win. Looking back, what are some things that you tried that you think? Maybe I'm not going to do that again, or maybe if I did this a little bit differently, just from a high level of like marketing, promotions, giveaways, and what have you.
Yeah, no, there were definitely some lessons learned throughout the way, so I don't want to make it seem like it was all rosy
Sunshine
100%
and
of the
yeah.
time. I think the biggest lesson that we're going to have to figure out is as great as our giveaways were for students, they were lacking a little bit on the just regular fan side. So if you're a regular fan, even a season ticket holder, you would come and see the students who don't pay to come to the games outside of their student fee, walking away with all this awesome stuff, and it's off limits to you. So what we're going to figure out this year is how to make sure we expand some of that offering to them. That's just something we have to figure out, and that's probably
Hmm.
the number one feedback that we got.
Hmm.
Even looking to take that a step forward to say, I can't attend the game. I live in Michigan, or my son has a game. I can't come. How can we get some of those items even in retail through some of our partners to where now they're buying, and then there's a licensing revenue stream as well. So that's a focus we're going to have. Um, Winter break, very tough for us.
Hmm. It's hard for everyone for sure.
Hard for everyone. Kent is a place. It's a very small town. It's a college town.
Hmm.
Um, Much bigger campus than you would probably think. A lot of students. We have a great student turnout. They all go home for winter. What do we do? Those games were tough for us this year. So we still haven't cracked that code just yet. And then the last thing I would say, there was a couple games that between a million different things, opponents, day of the week, time, all those things working against you.
Hmm.
We put a lot of eggs in some of those baskets to see if we could overcome that. And it was one of those things where there's certain games that no matter what you do, it almost seems like it wasn't going to give you the ROI that you want. So we're going to really take a look at some of those games that just feel insurmountable. You never want to give up or give in, but just kind of rearranging the budget to make sure that we're not going all in for a game that just couldn't possibly return. So those are three lessons I think we learned this past year.
Yeah, all three are great. I think cracking the code, once you figure that out, how do you get a large attendance during that winter
Mhm.
break? I think every college in America would be calling you up and saying, "What did you do? What's the game plan?" So that's an obvious one for sure that
Yeah.
I think universities would love to. So on the single game ticket side, so it sounds like student engagement went up. Did your single game ticket also go up?
It did. And so did season tickets. I think that's something you could tip the hat to the year before with how
Hmm.
successful it was. We had a really cool season ticket gift this year that was replica championship rings that looked just
Hmm.
like the rings that the team got. Those were only available to season ticket holders. We saw a really good push on those as well. So I think my hope is that now there's this expectation for Kent State basketball to deliver this product the way that we have.
Hmm.
My hope is that it just continues to climb as more and more people learn, what to expect from us. So my hope is that that continues for the next few years.
Yeah, and cracking that code of the giveaways for the fans versus the students, that's going to be a hard one to figure out. But you got yourself in a good spot where you got the students excited. And oftentimes when the students come to the games, the fans are excited as well because the students
Exactly.
create a lot of that atmosphere. So 100%. Well, let's talk about planning these promotional nights. You had Salute to Service, Camper Reunion Day, Healthcare Appreciation Night, Alumni Night's a pretty easy one, International Night, Unity. You had a lot of these other ones here, even Esports Night. Which ones were successes? Which ones would you look back and go, you know what, we would do this differently?
So just walking through some of those that you had. Salute to Service was a no-brainer for us because it was on Veterans Day, like actual Veterans Day.
Hmm.
So we had a lot of activations around that. We had a flag that took the logo, put it in red, white, and blue, kind of a flag kind of thing. That worked really well. Healthcare Appreciation and Alumni Night were two that were done over winter break in
Hmm.
hopes of cracking that code. Those weren't as successful as we had hoped. Healthcare Appreciation, we did Croc Charms as the giveaway. A lot of
Hmm.
nurses wear Crocs and things like that. It was the thought process. And then on Alumni Night, we did a Mascots of the Past poster. We have a really strange winding mascot history where we've had like 6 to 8 different mascots that completely don't tie into each other, and all have these weird, unique stories. So we put them all in a poster. Again, winter break was tough. International night, I mentioned that one earlier. That one is so huge for us because of a couple things. One, it brings out probably 400 or 500 international students who may not always attend our games
Hmm.
otherwise. And then what we do is actually an international parade at halftime with the president, and they come out, they hold the flag from where they're from, and it kind of showcases to people outside of the campus community just how global Kent State is. So we get a lot of thumbs up from our campus partners too, because they love being a part of that.
Hmm.
Similar to Unity Night, that kind of a DEIB kind of night,
Hmm.
where we showcase groups that maybe don't get the platform that they deserve throughout the year. So a
Sure.
lot of people come out to those games that don't otherwise. Um, Blackout, that was when we did the black jerseys.
Hmm.
For years and years, they had done a black like jersey T-shirt, and so with some advanced planning, we were able to get some black jerseys that are really cool that were basically the same cost as a t-shirt anyway. And that was when we had the lines wrapped around the arena and really worked well. And then esports night was a new one. It wasn't a crazy success because it was a Tuesday night against the last place team in the conference, but I
Hmm.
think it's something we can really build on. We basically made like an esports lounge with one of our partners that had a bunch of arcade games. We had a golf simulator, things like that. So I think that's one we can take as a proof of concept and put it on a maybe a better date. So that's just kind of a snapshot of some of those.
So that esports night, my mind immediately went to we're going to use the video board and they're going to play in video games on the video board. But you went a different route. You had arcade games, you had NBA Jam, and a golf simulator, all this stuff on the concourse. And you allowed students and even fans to play. Is that kind of the direction with that?
Yeah, and what was cool is we worked with one of our Chevrolet dealerships that's a big partner. He's a big gamer.
Hmm.
So they kind of went all in on that. We had some fun signage. We had a Pac-Man going up and down on the elevator. We did a mouse pad giveaway. A lot of PC gamers like those. The one thing that I thought was a miss on that we would want to fix is our esports team
Hmm.
actually competed that night, which we didn't know at the time when we scheduled it. So they weren't able
Hmm.
to come. Our idea, like you said, was to have them do kind of a showcase where maybe they play Rocket League at halftime on the video board, but they
Hmm.
couldn't come. So that was the one miss I think on that night that we could fix moving forward.
But at that great opportunity, you go to them and say, "Hey, we're planning it. Can we get your buy-in?" And when they're bought in, they're going to provide you with a lot of great ideas, and then you take their ideas and try to implement them as much as you can, while also getting the Chevy dealership involved. I think that's a piece there. Oftentimes, some universities completely swing and miss. They're going to work with the student side to get students to the games, but it's the other departments to get their buy-in and get their ideas to make the night successful. And it sounds like that's the path y'all are headed down.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And another one we're kind of thinking for next year is kind of a partnership with the rec center. Do like a pickleball paddle giveaway. They always have a big pickleball tournament every year. And so how can we get again, it's that same concept of how do we get these people who aren't coming currently and give them a reason outside of the game to want to be there. And that's kind of the inspiration behind all this.
Yeah, and pickleball is such a huge one. Lots of sports teams across America are doing pickleball paddle covers, pickleball
Yep.
actual paddles as giveaways, and the lines are wrapped around the building because it's something unique that they haven't seen before. So I think that's such a great one as well. So structuring the promotional calendar differently this year, you're probably going to move some things around specifically during winter break. It sounds like, right?
Yeah, I think we just need to be, even on the football side is a good example. Um, we have what I kind of feel is two different seasons. We have our first three games, which are on weekends when it's still nice in September and October. And we usually have two midweek games, the famous midweek action.
Hmm.
Those are in November on a Wednesday. It's 30 degrees and snowing. We kind of treat those two things differently. And so
Hmm.
what to your point of structuring, we're going to go all in for the first three, deliver an experience that's going to cause people to want to come back for the last two. We tried to do too much of the how can we salvage these two midweek games in November? Well, sometimes the answer is you can't do it to the amount that you want to. So
Hmm.
that's an example of we're going to go all in on the games we know we can do that on, and then be a little more strategic on the ones we lay off of, like winter break for basketball, for example.
Yeah, that's such a great path and planning for universities across America to say, hey, you know what, if you spread yourself too thin, you're not going to see the results. So just try to double down on several games. So that makes sense. Let's talk student engagement. Sounds like you had great engagement this year with your students. Obviously, some support from the other side of campus, so that's been marvelous. So you've got some dollars, you're doing the giveaways. How are you connecting with the students to get them excited, to get them to come out to these? Are you texting them, social media? What are you doing to connect with the students?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we did since I've been here is we completely branded the student section. And what I mean is the group of students, not necessarily a physical seat in any one given venue. So
Okay.
years back, there was a student section called the Mac Maniacs. We play in the Memorial Athletic and Convocation Center, the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't make sense for me because football doesn't play there, soccer doesn't play there, all these sports. And that had been dead for a few years, and then COVID happens, and then all of a sudden, no one who knew what that was is even here anymore. So we wanted to change that. So we did some surveys, kind of late summer, early fall, to students. We wanted them to pick the name. So we came up with Flash's Flock. Flash is our mascot,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a brand new logo behind it. There's signage in all our student sections, and so we wanted something they could own that was branded and something you could really point back to. One thing that we did right away was for our opener football game on the road, we had a pool party in the rec center where you could get shirts for the first time that had the new logo on it. We played Central Florida, so there was already kind of like a pool
Mm-hmm.
Florida feel to it, just kind
Mm-hmm.
of our own Northeast Ohio kind of thing. So that's been good. It's been really good to have like a unified student section. In terms of communication, though, really all the above that you said, we're able to email our students directly, especially around student ticket claims.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not a luxury that everyone on a college campus has access to, so don't take that for granted. We do text our students. We can talk about that here in a little bit with some other things we do. We do street teams, social media, even just the A-frame on campus, as simple as that is, that does work.
Mm-hmm.
So we really hit it from like every angle on campus.
So let's jump into the texting piece of this. So, how did you get the phone numbers, or are you running contests so that they enter to win and you're collecting them that way? I've seen UC Davis does this free pizza. You got to enter to win. They've done some things like that across the country. So, how did you get the numbers, and how did that all come together?
So it's kind of twofold. So we partnered back in December with a company called Vazi. Some
Mm-hmm.
of your other guests may have talked about that. You may be familiar. Basically, what they allow you to do is text your fans in a really easy to use way. It's been great for. We actually sell a lot of tickets to the non-students through that too. But one, when they claim tickets through Pacquiao with us, some of them do put in their phone number. So a good chunk of the kids that are actually attending the games kind of offer up that phone number on the front end. And then yes, we do some different promotions and things like that, enter to wins where we collect. So we got a pretty healthy number between those two, and we all know that techs have like a 99% open rate. So of course we still hit them in the traditional ways
Mm-hmm.
on campus and email, but the texting, it's not as wide of a net because we don't have as many numbers as emails, but it's really the people that are actually coming.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of able to cut through the clutter and reach them.
Yeah, oftentimes that I've worked with some universities, they think, well, we're just going to email students. That's just our path is how we're going to connect with them. But students are just like your Joe fan. They need to hear it from 12 different areas before they actually say, gosh, I'm going to go to the game this weekend or this Saturday or whatever it may be. So 100%. So you've got texting, you got emails, you've got signage around campus, you've got folks outside of probably the cafeteria with signs and tables, and you're doing all of these things to just remind the students. Now, how do you get the students to keep coming back? Are you doing any loyalty programs with them?
Not currently. Not doing any loyalty programs. I think the biggest thing that we're doing is just providing an experience that makes you want to come back. And
Hmm.
we take a lot of pride in whether it's a giveaway or just the experience at the game that you have. Our goal is to give the students an experience that they go back to their friends that don't attend Kent State and they say, "Look at all the cool stuff we're doing. I bet you
Hmm.
guys don't." That's like the best thing in the world for me when it comes to students. So, no loyalty or anything like that. We've really done a nice job, I think, with the giveaways. To what there's an it's hard now because there's an expectation
Yeah,
of
you've
what am
set
I
the bar
getting.
pretty
And
high.
yeah, we set the bar high, but we've been able to deliver on that. So I think people want to see what's next, and they even if
Mhm,
they don't read the email or the text, they still show up anyway to see what the next thing we're doing is. And
mhm.
um, I think we do a really nice job with the in-game experience as well. So between those two things, um, I think we've done a nice job.
So just going down that in-game experience just for a second, specifically for the students, the DJ is often a popular add-on for men's basketball games. Are you doing something like that?
Oh yeah, so we have a DJ. His name's DJ Smills, so I want to give him a shout out because he's so great to work with.
Hmm.
Super talented. We put him right in the middle of the student section. He sets
Hmm.
up there, and he has become kind of synonymous with the student section. We give him a microphone. He's not our MC, but he's a third voice to kind of break up PA, MC, and now
Hmm.
him when the moment's right. So he has the ability to pump up the crowd. He's engaging with the students throughout the game. We give him t-shirts to throw.
Hmm.
He has been a total game changer. He's been with us for a few years on men's basketball. But this past year we added him for every single women's basketball game as well, and it just makes such a difference.
Yeah, no doubt about that. He's playing music that we may not, you and I may not know as
Right.
dads with little ones, but this is what resonates with the 21, 22-year olds at the
Yeah.
university. So makes sense. So you've got the DJ in the in the student section. He's throwing out shirts, playing good music, pumping up the crowd. What are some other things that you're doing just to get the students fired up?
Yeah, so we try to keep them engaged as possible, really throughout. So pregame, we have you've probably seen them other places. I know BYU does them a lot of places. The student section banners that you unroll it and they wave it, so
Hmm.
that gets them involved pregame. We have what we call flock leaders, kind of an extension of that Flashes Flock branding that we talked about, that are strategically planted in the student section to lead cheers.
Hmm.
Again, we're not inventing all this stuff, but we're trying to take all these things we've seen other places have success with
Hmm.
and do that. So Spirit Squad, same way. If we have a really big game, we have a big enough squad that you have the people on the floor, but then we can put some of them up in the student section on the stairwell. And just fun, engaging promotions, whether it's video board, on court, you name it. We work really well with our MMR. We're a Van Wagner school, and we
Hmm.
work really well with them. And they're very conscious of this isn't just an ad; it needs to be an entertaining thing that happens to have kind of an advertising component to it. So they've been a big help on some of the in-game stuff too.
Great, great, great. Yeah, and oftentimes universities have a sales rep or Van Wagner or something like that. They would go out and sell. They want to run this 30-second video spot on the video board.
Right.
It's not very engaging. It's quite boring, truth be told, but it's 12 grand or $15,000, whatever that amount is. So it's just a cash play, but it doesn't enhance the fan experience. So I'm glad Van Wagner and you and everyone on staff is supportive of the idea of like, if it's not enhancing the fan experience, like nope, we're not going to do it. So this is great. These are more. How often do you text students?
Usually once a week.
Once a week.
And
Okay.
what we try to do to keep from getting our hands slapped and being a little too aggressive is we always tie it back to this is a reminder to claim your tickets for this week's events.
Hmm.
So really what it is a PSA that you do have to have a ticket for. We don't ticket at all of our events, but the ones that do, you have to claim a ticket. That was new this year. We changed ticket systems, and before we were just flashing IDs and clicking students in. We don't do that anymore. So you do have to claim a ticket, download it, get it scanned. So we always tie it back to basically here's what's coming up this week. Claim your ticket. See you there. Um, is there special occasions where we do other things? Yes, but we try not to do it more than once a week. Certainly not more than twice.
Follow-up question with the students. You mentioned you have a few that are helping lead some of the cheers. What did you call? You called those the what's that group?
Flock leaders.
Flock leaders. Where did you
Yep.
find them, and how did you convince them? Are they paid? Do you give them extra stuff? How did you get those?
So we kind of posted it as a job, like you would any other student position,
Hmm.
but obviously that one's a little more fun for the right person, so it wasn't too hard to attract that. So we started out with just a couple. You're like, well, you're paid hourly, just like a student worker. Any of the swag stuff we give out, we'll give it to you. Make sure people see you have an answer for, hey, where can I get that? You then have the answer for that. And then once the games actually started, especially basketball season, there were those kids who naturally are like, man, he would be perfect if he could spread his energy further than just himself. So they kind of almost self identify.
Hmm.
And it's pretty easy to have the conversation of, hey, you're coming to the games anyway. Let us pay you while you're here, but just do us the favor of kind of getting everyone else up. So really wasn't a tough sell. What I'd like to expand on in year 2 of doing that is a lot more of the campus engagement, meeting with student groups, really selling their peers on coming to the games. We didn't do a
Hmm.
lot of that outside of game day.
Hmm.
So I think that's step 2 for us is getting them more involved on campus throughout the week, attracting more of their friends to come, and then once they're there, doing the stuff they've been doing.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my obvious next question related to them is it's great that they do this on the game day, but how do we get the students to the game and how do you encourage that? I've even heard some universities ask like the men's basketball team stand up and say, "Hey, we've got a game tonight or game tomorrow," in the middle of like a sports management class or in the middle of a class,
Yeah.
depending on the professor. And those things are fine. But oftentimes it's having a friend who is actually their friend rather than the 7-footer talking in class that you never hear from, right?
It's a healthy peer pressure.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
a good use of that. Like, hey, I'm coming. You can't miss out. Be there. And yeah, sometimes that voice of just another kid that's in class with you can kind of cut through.
Yep. Yeah. No doubt about that. Let's talk media buying a little bit because you probably spent some money to try to get the local community to buy some season tickets or single game tickets, groups or what have you. What did that look like? You don't have to give me the exact budget dollars, but like roughly what was kind of your plan and how did you allocate it between like traditional versus digital?
Yeah, so I would say from a paid advertising standpoint, the vast majority of that is focused on our non-student fans who we're trying to get to buy tickets. There's a couple exceptions to that. We did some bus advertising for students that had QR codes that had the schedule.
Hmm.
The public transportation is really big on campus to get people around, so you're sitting there. That was one of the media buys we did for students, but otherwise it was all ticket sales based. We did a very healthy amount of paid social advertising this year that had the engaging videos. We did a campaign around the season ticket gift of the ring that I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Luckily, we had some great footage from last year because we were so successful on the court. So a lot of a lot of social. We did do two hard mailers this year.
Hmm.
One was to new home buyers within a 10
Hmm.
mile radius of the stadium, um, with the message of kind of join the Flash family, assuming you're new to town, kind of thing, kind of
Hmm.
introducing ourselves to them. And then we did another one that was to, it's basically a list of people who've self identified as sports fans or had bought a ticket online to an event in the
Hmm.
area, same 10-mile radius, obviously making sure those weren't the same list. And those worked really well. That was nice. I think when done right, the hard mailings can kind of cut through the clutter too,
Hmm.
because we don't get as much mail, or at least as much exciting mail as we probably used to.
Yep.
So that was really good for us. And then we have a partnership with ESPN Cleveland. For those listening, we are only like 45 minutes south of Cleveland to put
Mhm.
Kent on the map for you. So we put most of our basketball games on through there. They have some pretty regionally famous alumni who have shows throughout the week. So we did some paid advertising with them just
Mhm.
throughout the broadcasting day for ESPN Cleveland. And this was year 2 of that partnership. And that's been really good for us too.
Yeah. So paid social, it sounds like you did some ads that are more video specific promoting the season. Basketball season's here. Did you do any like promotion specific ones about just to encourage fans to come out? Hey, it's international night. We're running ads to promote international night. Was that some of the strategy?
It really wasn't a big part of it this year, and I think that was kind of a miss for us. It's funny you said we had a meeting just today about that. Our strategy this year, a lot of it last year was more season ticket based. It was the months leading into it. And once the season started, it kind of dropped off. Part of that was because of budget, but so this year we want to make sure we start early like we did and leave some budget so it can run throughout. And when we have all these great promotions, that we can kind of hit those. So it's funny you say that because we talked about exactly that strategy today. Another piece of paid advertising was I've been wanting to do this forever, and I finally had the budget to do it this year. Was we advertised in movie theaters before the movie started
The
and timed that.
previews. Yep.
Yes, and we timed that around the Barbie Oppenheimer weekend
Hmm.
is when it started. And so we did a pretty engaging football ad for season tickets, and we got a lot of comments, a lot of success from that. Our rival is Akron. They're only like 15 minutes from here. We heard that they had seen it and weren't thrilled that we were in the Akron movie theater. So that's always a win too. And you can
Mhm.
annoy a rival like that. But that was something I've been wanting to try. Did it change the world? No, but it
No.
it was a nice touch, especially when so many people were going to the movies over the summer, and it was just worth trying something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think movie theaters are such a great way to get some additional exposure, get people introduced to your brand. It's great from an awareness perspective, and then you're using your emails and your texting and your social media ads to see if we can drive some ticket sales. So I always like to look at it because teams will say, "Well, this didn't give me an ROI, but this did." Oftentimes, all of it is a big old. It's in a melting pot. Everything comes together. So coming out at the bottom, you should look at how many return ticket buyers did I get and how many new ticket buyers. And it sounds like you got a lot of new ticket buyers because your attendance went up, but you got a lot of buzz around some of the things that you did.
Yeah, I tell you one thing that I actually learned from your show, Jeremy, that I want to do next year is the blip
Oh, you
billboards.
like that, huh?
So I did like I went straight online and I found one in Akron right next to their campus. And so my hope is that when we beat them in either football or basketball next year is to have a kind of a blip campaign right outside their campus. And I don't know, maybe it's flash country or whatever it is, because
Hmm.
we have a lot of alumni obviously with how close it is. So um,
Yeah, I've
we'll look
seen
to do
some.
that next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've seen some other departments on campus use those from a recruiting perspective. So Penn State does a lot of recruiting outside in different communities, and they'll do billboards and a bunch of other ones as well. But that's a such a fun way to pick fun at your at Akron and being able to do it at a very cost effective way. So I'm glad you got a good tip there. So for
Yeah,
sure.
that was good.
Yeah. Softwares. So we talked Vazi earlier. You talk about blip billboards. What else are you doing? What other softwares are you spending some of your marketing dollars on? What are some that you already had that you didn't have to spend any money on?
So outside of Vazi, I think the single biggest thing for us, and it sounds so simple, we we transitioned to a new ticket software. Paciolan has been a wonderful partner for us, and it's really made the fan experience side of the ticket process much more professional and streamlined. But with that is the Eloqua email platform, which we
Hmm.
did not previously have, and I'd say before that our email marketing was a bit of a mess at best. But this software has been such a game changer for us, and that's how we're able to all of our students live within there. And if a kid drops out or a kid comes to campus late, like every day that refreshes, so we always know we have the right active student list, things like that. Super user friendly. All sorts of different drag and click kind of templates and things like that, so it really doesn't take much training either. And we have really completely changed the way we do email marketing, which is so important because of it's free,
Hmm.
and people are raising their hand to receive a lot of this stuff. So we've used it a million different ways. So that has been a game changer for us.
So that email software is another part of campus using it as well. Is it connected to your ticketing software or is its own standalone?
Yeah, it's connected to the ticketing software. It was all kind of a package deal. And what's a little unique is when we signed on with Paciolan, there were actually four box offices across this campus, and then there's several satellite Kent State campuses as well. So
Mhm.
um, athletics, obviously, university events is on it. The Center for the Arts is on it, and
Mhm.
then one of the satellite campuses also has a performing arts center that uses it. And so we're all kind of able to play friendly in the sandbox, and it's been kind of powers and numbers when negotiating and the impact that it had. So it's been well worth the investment, um, which really fully started in November for us. So like really right first week of basketball. We actually finished football on our other system, but it's been really good for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You're using Vazi for outreach for single game buyers. Are you also using it for season ticket holder communication? What like know before you goes or buffets or food or some of those floor seat people? Are you using it that way as well?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's really the third and final way that we use it. Even game time changes, like Northeast Ohio playing baseball outside. We have a really good fan base for baseball, but times change every week. Doubleheader Friday gets moved to a doubleheader Saturday, all that kind of thing. So we use that as kind of an FYI, like, hey, this time change. hey, there's football season. Hey, there's traffic over here. Make sure you enter this way or this lot's full.
Hmm.
It's a really simple, easy way to get just information out there that needs to go to certain people. We actually had a women's basketball game get canceled this year because the other team didn't have enough healthy players.
Oh man.
So that was how that went out. All the tickets that had been purchased through Pacquiao, and we were able to upload that and get the word out right away. So, um, really, I promise I'm not a paid advocate of Fozzy, but it's been really good for us. So if you're intrigued, I'd encourage you to reach out.
Yeah, Vozzy works with a lot of universities, University of Alabama, University in New Orleans, or LSU, I believe, uses them. A lot of SEC schools, a lot of big time universities
Yeah,
with football use them. So teams are using them all across a lot of minor league sports, basketball, baseball. So a lot of folks are using them. So it works out great. Vozzy's a great platform for text, and there's a few other ones out there as well. But that's the main one right now that I'm seeing a lot of teams use. So you've had a tremendous year for wrestling, men's basketball, gymnastics, field hockey, women's volleyball, soccer. And now you probably have these coaches knocking on your door going, hey, what's next? So, how do you manage expectations of coaches?
I think that is one of the hardest parts of my job and really anyone in my chair on a college campus because we have 19 sports. Everyone has varying levels of expectations. Everyone has varying levels of concern with what we do. There's some people who want to be involved in everything. There's some people, excuse me, that want to not be involved at all and just, hey, we trust you, you do it, and everything in between. So a lot of different personalities, as you can imagine. Um, I think two things have really helped us a lot since I've been here is just open communication from the front end of your planning process. One, they can see that you are working on their behalf and are thinking about their season, especially if you're not maybe one of the top sports. Um, we put marketing plans together for all the sports that we work with that are pretty comprehensive, that have goals, they have avenues that we plan on promoting their team. It has SWOT analysis, historical attendance, revenue, really anything you'd want to see. We do that for every sport. And I think that goes a long way.
Hmm.
But then at the bottom of it, once we have a finalized, all agreed upon promotional schedule marketing plan, we ask that the head coach signs it, the marketing representative signs it, and then the sports supervisor signs it. And so that way there's the buy-in of on this date, we all agreed. So that way you get a lot of the midway through the season, hey, what are you doing to get people at my game? Like, let's do t-shirts, cost $5,000. Well, here's the budget. Here's exactly how we allocated it, and we all agreed on it. Of course,
Hmm.
there's things that pop up throughout the season. Maybe someone's having an incredible year or a certain event or cause happens. Of course, you got to be flexible.
Hmm.
Definitely not saying that. But like in terms of the core plan, it's well communicated from the front end. They're involved in the planning process, they're bought in, and then eventually they literally sign off on it. And that has been so helpful for us.
Yeah, that's marvelous. I remember sitting down having those meetings, working in college athletics, and then midway through the season, it's like, well, can we just give out a bunch of free tickets? And it's like, no, 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 that's not the plan. We got to stick to the plan.
Yep.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
say that the part that's been tough to manage, as we do a lot of these cool creative giveaways and things like that, is, the other 18 coaches may see
Mhm.
it and say, well, like, well, how do I get that? Or like, why did they get this? And I got it. There's a lot of, looking around, seeing what
Mhm.
other people got, and that's just tough to do. But their job is to advocate for their program, and they only want the best for them, and I totally understand that. So that's always going to be a really tough part of the job in college athletics, like but. Um, we've managed it pretty well.
Yeah, sounds like it. So, last couple questions here. Football planning for next year. What's that going to look like? Are you taking a similar strategy that you had for basketball from promotional nights and trying to do some outreach and some of the things that we were talking about with your paid media as well? Is that kind of the direction you're going as you start planning for football?
Yeah, so it's a lot of those lessons that we learned throughout the way that I touched on in terms of we're going to go all in for the first three games and let that work pay off and kind of allocate the budget that way. We're going to have advertising timelines that stretch from really pretty much now throughout the entire season instead of just kind of ending on the front end. We're going to keep building group sales. I think that's a huge avenue that really isn't dependent on team success for the most part,
Mhm.
and really leverage our Learfield Amplify team for that. Um, and really just kind of that same model of basketball. Like, what else can we come up with that gets people there? Yes, there's a Kansas State football game going on, but why else are they there? That's really kind of the spot we're at with football right now. People forget we're 2 years removed from a MAC championship game appearance in football, but we have new coach. A lot of people transferred out, and it's kind of hitting reset. So as he builds that program up, we got to do our part to get people there, regardless.
Yeah, and the same thing for basketball as well. It's all about that fan experience. How do we make tailgates really great for fans to be a part of so that they sell out if you sell those? What does it look like to be a single game buyer? Is the music great? Is the food hot? Like all of
Yeah.
these things part of it. So it sounds like you got your thinking caps on to try to figure out how do we make this even better. So you're heading down the right path, it sounds like.
Yeah, just controlling all the things that we can control, from the friendly face that greets you through all the stuff you mentioned. Just making sure we deliver on what we can. And we have a lot of kind of built-in big games on the front end of the schedule between homecoming and parent and family weekend and home openers and all those things. We just need to do a little bit better job of leveraging everything else also into those games. And if we do that, I think we'll have a really good season.
Yeah, it sounds like it for sure. So, best of luck on the football side. It sounds like you're building some great things happening there on campus at Kent State. If someone's interested in reaching out to you, I'm going to put your, if it's okay with you, I'm going to put your contact information in the
Yeah,
show
please
notes,
do.
and they can reach out, and maybe they have a question about how you're using Vazi, or well, how did you get the other side of campus to give you some money for some giveaways, and maybe there's a strategy around that and how that conversation went. So, I'll do that for sure. But just certainly appreciate you coming on and just being an open book and allowing me to just pepper you with a lot of questions. And I'm sure universities are going to take a lot out of this conversation because there's so many great nuggets.
I appreciate that. Well, thanks for having me. If I crack any of those codes of winter break or any of those impossible things, I'll give you a call and we'll do a round two. But you're doing great work. Appreciate everything you do, and always here to be a resource to anybody listening.
Sounds good.